Well, let's have a look at the scene in Croydon in South London yesterday morning. And, yes? You can have a yes?
Bro, what happened?
Stabbed.
Oh, sorry?
Stabbed.
Somebody got stabbed?
Yeah.
Just now?
A little schoolgirl.
Just now?
Schoolgirl.
A schoolgirl?
Yeah, schoolboy stuff.
Well, a 15-year-old girl had been stabbed to death with what's thought to have been a machete, making her way to school. Named locally as Eliana, witnesses say she just got off the bus with a group of friends when she was attacked. Well, the bus driver and other passers-by tried to save her. It's believed there'd been an argument with a boy who tried to give a girl or her friend some flowers.
Now, this lad was 17 years of age. He's believed to be known to the victim and was arrested shortly after she died. She is being described as very comedic with a bright future ahead of her.
Well, Chief Superintendent Andy Britton appealed for those with information to come forward.
This is every parent's worst nightmare, and I know the officers who responded this morning, along with our emergency service colleagues, are devastated at the victim's death. This is an emotion I share, and I know people across Croydon will be feeling the same. The victim's family has been informed, and our thoughts are with them at what must be an incredibly difficult time.
Well, we know this isn't just a one-off tragic stabbing. It is every parent's nightmare, as the police have said. And over the years, knife crime has taken many young lives without any sign of the issue being resolved. Fatal stabbings in England and Wales remain at record highs as knife crime grips the nation.
Question is this Britain's version of gun crime, as it is in the USA? Throughout the morning, we're going to investigate why young people carry knives, how they get hold of them, and what can be done to protect them.
Well, let's speak to former Metropolitan Police Detective Peter Bleksley. And at the end of the day, the tragedy in all of this is we are talking about children. And when we talk about teenagers' deaths in the capital alone, this is the 16th. At what point, what will it take for us to get a grip of this?
It's such a tragedy, and yet again I find myself talking about one of these savage acts that has ended a young life before it had really begun. The poor girl hadn't even taken her GCSEs. Well, knife crime is at epidemic proportions. There are, so far this year, up until August, so in the 12 months up until August, there have been 211 knife crime incidents with injury in Croydon alone. And that only makes it the 10th most prevalent borough in London. So there's 9 boroughs worse than Croydon. There are too many knives, there are too many stabbings, there are too many deaths. So what do we do about it? Well, the police need to be very robust in stop and search. I know that's going to anger certain people. Quite frankly, I'm not bothered. They need to be on the streets, proactive, with justification, of course, politely, robustly, firmly, stopping and searching people to act as a deterrent. And then when people are captured with knives, the courts need to support that work by handing down suitable punitive punishments.
Yeah, obviously so much you said there, which rings home, Peter. The punishments, obviously the consequences aren't strong enough. But you said you don't care about people being stopped and searched, but that's not the political view on a lot of this, and that won't stop as a result. Horrific to think that Croydon has got a knife problem in particular, but is only the 10th worst borough in London for it. So, I mean, when we think about it, what is a 17-year-old doing with a foot-long bladed knife, weapon is exactly what it is, in their bag at 8:30 in the morning on their way to school? What is that all about, Peter?
A source contacted me last night who works in a school in Croydon and said that kids are coming to school with knives, but what they do is they stash them in the bushes and other hiding places close to the school, so they don't take the weapons into school, and yet when the school day is finished, they go and retrieve their knives. Now, some young people foolishly believe that they need to carry a knife for their own protection. And there is an element of peer pressure involved in this. If their friends are carrying, they feel they should be carrying. But the statistics clearly show that if you take a knife onto the streets, you are in fact more likely to become a victim of knife crime, not less likely. But these messages are clearly not being heard. I'm sure many of the reasons are complex, perhaps absent parenting, bad parenting, socio-economic factors, and many more things like that. But the police are not social workers. I'm a former police officer. I want to see police officers on the streets stopping and searching people and hopefully finding knives, removing them and arresting people.
I want to know how they get on the streets in the first place. It seems far too easy for young people to get their hands on these sorts of weapons. We're talking about machetes and all sorts of horrendous double-edged blades. You know, does the law need tightening in all of this? Is there more that the police can do in policing this particular area?
The law was tightened a couple of years ago, and only a couple of weeks ago, the government have announced further measures that are going to be implemented through Parliament with regards to the sale of long-bladed knives, often called zombie knives, machetes and the like. Well, that may help a bit, but you can go onto the internet, go to the dark web and sadly buy almost anything you want these days. So despite these legislative changes and laws being passed, it is not translating to a lack of a reduction in the amount of knives on the street, and it's not equating to a reduction in the bloodshed. There is a tide of teenage blood flowing through the streets of London and some of our other capital cities. We need robust action from law enforcement to try and reduce this.
And it's fascinating you telling us the techniques that people who attend school use, hiding the blades before they actually get into the classroom. Because I thought, right, will you solve this by putting up a metal detector, a scanner, something, you know, before they go into school that they have to pass through this. But obviously, to no avail, they've thought of that already.
Absolutely. So they've stashed their blade and they retrieve it the minute they come out of school. And thereafter, perhaps, they get on buses, they walk, they cycle, however they get to and from school, but they are armed with knives. And of course, what is going to happen in any type of confrontational situation? A knife will be drawn. Let's just think about that stat I mentioned earlier, if we may. So in the year to August of this year, 211 reported knife crime incidents with injury. How many incidents were not reported to the police? Many more, I would suggest, where people involved in gang behaviour perhaps got stabbed and then went off to hospital to get themselves fixed without reporting it to any police officer. We simply don't know. But what we do know is that the statistics are unacceptable. Children, adults, teenagers, people are dying in numbers that is just off the Richter scale, and something robust has to be done by the police. I don't want our police doing social work. I don't want our police doing what they so often call community engagement. There's two communities they need to engage with. Number one, victims of crime, and number two, perpetrators of crime. Let's get that territorial support group down to Croydon today. Let's get them on the streets. Let's get them when there is cause, when there is justification, stopping and searching people. And let's get them retrieving knives and arresting people.
OK, well, there's Peter Bleksley. He's a former police detective, laying it out straight there, listeners and viewers.